into the evolving world of education, where artificial intelligence meets inclusion, powered by ethics and anchored in purpose. Over the next few days, we'll explore how AI can empower teachers, personalized learning, and bridge gaps in access and equity while always centering the educator's role. And today's first session sets the perfect tone. It is my absolute honor to introduce our esteemed speaker, Mr. Paul Matthews. Mr. Paul Matthews is an Australian teacher, consultant, and TEDx speaker. He partners with schools across the globe to help them navigate the complex landscape of AI in education. Known for his thought provoking insights and practical wisdom, Paul brings a deep understanding of how schools can thrive in an AI infused world by balancing robust philosophy, sound principles, and hands on strategies. His session today, AI for Inclusive Education, will explore how technology, when designed and implemented thoughtfully, can help us reach every learner regardless of background or ability. But before we begin, a few important announcements and housekeeping rules. Day 2 of the series is scheduled for tomorrow, so stay tuned for another enriching session. Participants will be muted throughout the entire session. Please ensure you have a pen and paper to note important information. The chat box will only be enabled during the Q&A round and as required by the speaker. On 31st of May, we will host a special quiz to celebrate the culmination of this series. Winners stand a chance to receive Amazon vouchers worth up to Rs 25,000. Make sure you attend and participate fully. And one more thing, all sessions are streaming live on YouTube, so feel free to revisit them later. Your e-certificates will be sent after the session, so don't worry, you'll get the link after the session. And don't forget to fill the feedback form. And now let's carry forward the spirit of Padalti Shiksha, Padalte Shikshak, because as classrooms evolve, so must we. With that, it is my great pleasure to invite Mr. Paul Matthews to take us into this fascinating world where AI meets inclusion. Mr. Matthews, the virtual stage is yours. Thank you. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here. I'm excited to share some ideas with you. And let me say, I'd love the Q&A questions to come thick and fast. So I've certainly got some ideas that I would love to share with you. However, what we can also do is I'm able to take questions on the fly as well. So I'm more than happy if there's a question in the chat. Perhaps you could keep an eye on the chat and you let me know, because I think as we go, there will be questions arising. So, well, as I said, friends, and as I've been so generously introduced, my name is Paul Matthews. Let me give you a very brief understanding of sort of where I am coming from with some simple slides. So we should be looking at here AI for teachers, all right? What we're looking at here is a simple approach to artificial intelligence in your classroom. Now, if you want to hear more from me, and we'll talk about this at the end as well, if you want to hear more from me, I write on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if you're on LinkedIn, but if you look up Paul Matthews AI on LinkedIn, I write there every single day about technology, about artificial intelligence, about pedagogy and education. So please, I'd love to connect with you there. Just a background on myself. Yes, I'm a full-time teacher to start with. I absolutely love my work in the classroom. I teach year 9 and 10 history in a school in Tasmania, Australia. So I'm coming to you live from the very bottom of Australia now. You can see 3 men in that photo. That's my dad and his dad. So I'm a third generation educator. Both those men were school principals, and who knows where I will end up, but I'm certainly enjoying life in the family business of education. I've had the privilege to teach and speak about artificial intelligence around the world. And you can see there my teacher aid. It's an AI tool for teachers that I have co-founded, and it's aiming to give teachers bigger impact, more creativity, and save them time. So that's a bit of an overview of where I'm coming to you from today. Let's have a little bit of a think here. I would love it if you could leave our session today with these two key pieces of knowledge. I would love it if you could understand the principles of wise AI use and use AI to create high quality teaching resources. If you could leave this session with those two things, that's a big win for me. And of course, as we've shared earlier, we're focusing specifically on inclusive education. I just want to make sure, are my slides coming through okay? You can see my slides?
Yes, your slides are visible.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks. Thank you. Sometimes it's good just to double check. So let's have a think. To open up our discussion today, friends, about artificial intelligence and inclusive education, I want to talk to you not about a new tool, not about a new platform. I want to take you back to 2013 when I was teaching and introduce you to a student called Bill. I want to introduce you to a student called Bill. Now, it was my very first year of teaching, and I had Bill in my class. Now, Bill, I don't know if you've ever had a student like him, friends. He was very tricky. He was very tricky. I remember I had a whole stack of papers that I was handing out to my class for them to read, and I got back up to the front of the class, and one of the pieces of paper came zinging back over my head in the form of a paper aeroplane, and Bill had decided he didn't want to read it. And so he threw it at me. And that bad behavior from Bill actually was almost like a virus in my classroom. I was a first year student, eager to make an impression, eager to assert myself as a new teacher, but I felt like I was in a tug of war with Bill, this student who didn't want to pay attention whenever I'm trying to teach. I felt like he was actively making it hard for me. Why do we have to learn this, sir? He would say. My dad has been a mechanic for 30 years. He's never used anything he learnt in school, he would say. Oh, tricky. I brought him back at lunch that day and I said to him, Bill, this is not going to work for me. It's not going to work at all. What I want you to do, I said to him, I want you to write one paragraph. I want you to write 4 or 5 sentences on how you're going to behave in the class with me. And there, in future conversations, we can go back and reference that paragraph. And Bill didn't want to do it. He said, no, sir, I'm not doing that. That sounds silly. I said, all right, well, if you're not going to do it, we'll wait here all lunch and we'll come back tomorrow. So sure enough, we came back the next day. And Bill didn't want to write his paragraph about how he would behave in my class. So I said, okay, I'll meet you halfway. I'll write the paragraph on the board. You copy it into your book. I wrote 4 to 5 sentences on the board. At that point, Bill was going to copy it down. The interesting thing comes when I realized it took Bill about 21 minutes to copy 4 to 5 sentences in his book. You see, the big idea here is that Bill basically couldn't read and he couldn't write. Bill was in grade 9, but intellectually, perhaps he was in grade 4 or 5. And I started to realize, well, perhaps actually this is where the struggles are coming from Bill. And we're talking about inclusive education today. Bill had had a whole career in school as a student, feeling like he was on the outside, feeling like school wasn't for him. Every time he came into the classroom, although he may have been in the same physical building as everyone else, well, academically, he was kilometers away. So here's what I decided to do for Bill. Once I realized he could hardly read or hardly write, here's what I decided to do for Bill. I decided, well, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Pardon me, I can hear my phone going off there. Here's what I'm going to do for Bill. I'm going to explicitly teach him the vocabulary. I don't know if you've ever been on the outside of an in-joke. An in-joke that people all understand except for you. You don't get it. You're on the outside. Well, that's how some of our learners feel when they don't understand key vocab, right? They don't understand key vocab. They're on the outside of the in-joke and they feel like they're left out. They feel like they're not welcome. I said, I'm going to explicitly teach him the key vocabulary. I'm going to differentiate the reading. What does that mean? I'm going to take the same reading we're doing in class, but so I can include Bill, I'm going to bring it down in length and I'm going to reduce the complexity. So I'm going to take the same reading. So now Bill will be able to access the same ideas, but they'll just be in a way that he can understand and read. After that, I said, I'm going to make him a little retrieval practice quiz. That's really simple. It's much like the multiple choice quiz you will be doing soon. A retrieval practice quiz helps students, especially students who have poor working memory, like Bill. It helps them bed those ideas from their study into their long-term memory by practicing their knowledge. You know, much like we need to practice a sport or an instrument, we need to practice our knowledge. So I'll make a quick quiz for Bill, and that will help him practice his knowledge. And lastly, I'll give him some reflection questions so he can think about his information even more. So that's what I did. I was a first-year teacher. I was eager. I was zealous, and I spent all the time doing this. Remember, we're in 2013 here, friends. It's a long time ago. Here's what happened. Although it may seem like I'm just doing some extra administrative work, what I was actually doing for Bill was I was offering him a welcome. I was saying to Bill, I care about you. I care about your learning. I want you to learn. I want you to be a part of my classroom. You are welcome here. I am making space for you in my classroom right now. Here's a big phrase for you, but it's one that, I've got a manuscript for a book here that I've been editing today. The phrase is this: it's pedagogical hospitality. So pedagogy, as you know, is how we teach and learn. Hospitality is welcoming the outsider. It's that inclusive education that we're talking about today. What I was doing was offering Bill pedagogical hospitality, right? I was welcoming him. You're valued here, Bill. I want you to learn. And here's what happened, friends. It was night and day difference for Bill. He had an amazing lesson. I've never seen him work so hard. In fact, the other students in the class came to me and they said, Mr. Matthews, what have you done with the real Bill? This guy, he's doing his work. He's encouraging other people to do his work. We're not hearing a single question about, will I need to learn about World War I so I can be a bus driver when I'm older? We're not hearing any of those questions. He's just getting on with it. And it was amazing. But here is the tension. Rather than feeling excited, I actually felt, as you can see in the slide, I felt a little bit upset. Well, why did I feel upset? Well, because friends, that took me 90 minutes to do. To do all those things for Bill, it took me an extra hour and a half. I was already as busy as I could get. And here's the complicating factor. Well, although it took me 90 minutes for that class, I was actually teaching 4 classes. So it's not about finding an extra 90 minutes in my week to practice inclusive education. I needed 6 hours. And here's the hard thing, friends, I didn't have it. I did not have an extra 6 hours. So what does that mean? Well, it meant, unfortunately, Bill and the many students like him in my classes, they didn't get what they needed. I was stuck. I don't know if you've ever felt this. I was stuck between self-care and student care, and I felt like I was torn. It was an impossible choice to make. Well, thankfully, actually now, in a world where we have access to artificial intelligence, friends, it's not going to take me 6 hours a week. I'll tell you this, I do all those things, and I don't have 4 classes anymore. I have 8, but I can do it for every one of those classes, and it all takes me less than 30 minutes. And today, I'm going to show you how. Okay? Really quickly, I'm going to run through 4 of those things that I just discussed. We're going to look at key vocabulary. We're going to look at differentiating text. We're going to look at also retrieval practice questions and reflection questions. I'll show you how I do them. I'll show you the prompts I use and the philosophy behind the prompts. That'll take about 10 minutes, and then we'll have time for some questions. I'm really, really excited to show you this because, as I said at the very beginning, I want you, when we close this call in 40 minutes or so, I want you to leave going, wow, I can do things for my learners tomorrow that will include them more often, welcome them into more rich learning. That's, of course, if you're in a student-facing role. So let's have a look now, friends. Let's have a look. I'm going to give you a worked example. This is what I do every single week. Vocabulary words, okay? Now, what we'll often do is we'll have a key reading. What I do is I use this prompt and I paste the text in below, or I attach, say, the textbook chapter as an attachment. So I'm able to upload it. You'll notice that I use 3 headings in my prompting. And if you're new to AI or you're not quite sure how to use it, so I would use this with a tool like ChatGPT. I would use this with a tool like Grok. You can use both of those without accounts, or you can create an account for free. I would use this kind of prompt. It starts with a role, so it's just telling the artificial intelligence, well, this is the role you're doing. We do that because artificial intelligence is what we call a general purpose technology. It could do anything. It could plan you a holiday. It could make you a recipe. It could give you a workout regime. It could do anything. So we need to say, well, this is the domain of expertise I want you to have. Act as an expert. I might put in year 9 history teacher. And then in the task, consider the article below. Pick 10 words that should be considered key vocabulary for understanding the text. Format, so it's a third key piece of information. How do I want that information? That's the question we're answering with the format. For each definition, I want you to give me a full definition relevant to the subject I'm teaching. And underneath the full definition, here is a key move for inclusion, friends. Remember, we're talking about inclusion today. Underneath the full definition, I want you to give me a simple version of the same definition. So we're defining the key words with a full definition and a simple definition. And of course, you can use that RTF style prompting, role task format. You can use that anytime you want to prompt anything. It is elegantly simple and very effective. So let's have a look here. And what I've done on the left-hand side there, that's the article, and on the right-hand side, you can see the definitions. You can see the big definition on the first bullet point and a simplified definition on the second bullet point. It's a fantastic move. And then I might take that same article and I'm going to make it simpler so that Bill can actually read it. Again, from the learners in my classroom, if I'm giving them a year 9 level reading, a 9th grade level reading, but they're at a 5th grade reading level, well, it may as well be in another language. And they're going to get locked out of the rest of the lesson because they simply can't read it. It's tragic. It's tragic, isn't it? But there's never been a better time to equip our learners and to include our learners. We can reduce the length and complexity of the text really simply. Now, here is how I would follow on with the conversation. Now, you'll note I'm not doing the role task format approach again. I'm not doing it again because I'm continuing on the same conversation with the AI. So I don't need to re-explain the role and re-explain the task. What I do, I continue on in the conversation with ChatGPT or Grok, and that's simply called iteration. Iteration is going back and forward. It's having that conversation with the AI tool. And here is what I've said. Simplify it to a grade 5 reading level. Use shorter sentences, use easier words, avoid idioms, and so forth. I've said here that I want it to give me a big idea up the very front. People who struggle to read and people with poor memory or poor subject matter knowledge, what they need is they need to know a little bit about what they're going to read before they read it. That's what the research shows us. And so I put that into the AI tool. And what do we see? Well, here we go. There's my article over on the left, and on the right, we can see I've got my paragraphs, and underneath each paragraph, I've got a summary of that paragraph. So that's tailor-made for every single learner in my class to read what I need them to read. Okay, and you'll notice in the prompt, if you read that, I've even asked them to leave the words that they gave in the definitions in. So even though they're big, long words, I've said, well, don't simplify those because we've just done some vocabulary work on those words. So let's look at the third move here that I would do with artificial intelligence. It's called a retrieval practice quiz. You will know all about this if you teach students. Students need to practice their knowledge like they need to practice an instrument or a sport. And so what I've said here is taking the ideas that are in both the original and the adjusted reading, so that's the readings we made just before. Well, I want you to create a quiz for me. Give me 10 multiple choice questions, and I've just said, don't give me any of the all of the above kind of answers, please. Give me 5 short answer questions, and give me 3 extended response questions. Now, here's a key idea. And if you're like me and you like taking notes with pen and paper, or you've got a Word doc open and you're writing notes, I want you to write this down. You'll see what I've done here is I've asked for 18 questions. I'm not going to give my students 18 questions to do. I've asked for more than I need, and I'm going to choose the best stuff. I've asked for more than I need, and I'm going to choose the highest quality questions for my class. I call that asking for options, not answers. All right, if you're going to write that down, that's a key idea. Ask for options, not answers. Here's something, and it was so wisely said at the beginning of our time together here that the teacher is still the crucial component in the classroom. All right, we have wisdom and knowledge and discretion and knowledge of our learners and knowledge of our content that the artificial intelligence tools simply don't have. And so what we don't want to do is simply act as a sort of a pipeline for AI resources to stream straight into our classroom. Well, what we actually want to do is we want to make sure we're leveraging our wisdom and knowledge and discretion and expertise. One of the ways that we can apply that principle, friends, is when we're asking AI for something, we ask for more than we need and we choose the best stuff, right? We choose the things that we know are going to suit our school context, our school vision, mission, values, the learners in our classroom. We ask for options, not answers, then we choose the best things because we're the ones who have been put in charge of the class, not the artificial intelligence. All right, we use it as an aid. We use it to give us options and we choose the best for us, the material that's going to work best in our context. So that's a key idea, options, not answers. I wouldn't be surprised if we found that on one of the quiz questions that you'll be doing a little later on. And you can see here is the multiple choice quiz. And I'll also have short answer questions and long answer questions also. Now, lastly, reflection questions. Friends, I'm a big believer that we don't just want to fill our learners' heads full of knowledge. Now, that's important. Education is about knowledge, but it is also about more than knowledge. I like to break up the human being. I mean, of course, we're teaching humans, aren't we, into 3 main areas: head, heart, and hand. And so, acknowledging that human beings are more than just a brain, well, when we reflect on what we've learnt in that lesson, we want to acknowledge that truth by involving all parts of the human person. Head, so what did I learn? Heart, how do I feel? Hand, what am I going to do about what I've learned? Okay, and that's the sort of reflection questions that I give my learners. And that's the last step that I wanted to show you in the things that I do for every class every week. I put in the content, and this is sort of the 4th step. Put in the content and say, generate me 4 questions under each heading. Head, what did I learn? Heart, how do I feel? Hand, what can I do? Use simple English. And I work at a Christian school personally. So I've said in the heart and hand section, include at least 2 questions about being a peacemaker from a Christian worldview. And so you can see there those simple things that I can do with AI. That only takes me 2 to 3 minutes per subject. What am I actually doing? I'm offering that pedagogical hospitality. I'm taking the people who are on the outside and I'm bringing them in. And that's a powerful, powerful thing that we can do for our learners here. So there are 4 things that I highly commend to you in your practice as an educator. Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I've got one other idea that I would love to share, and then I'm more than happy to take some questions. So let me share this idea with you.
Hi, sorry, also sorry to interrupt.
In your practice as an educator.
Hi, Paul, so sorry to interrupt you. Actually, your slides are not visible.
I've just stopped sharing my slides.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Yep. So thank you for that. So I've got one more idea All right. I've shared with you the idea there of options, not answers. I've shared with you the idea of pedagogical hospitality. I want to share one more big idea before we perhaps think about some time for questions and answers together. Here is the big idea I want to give you right now. Now, I just did see a note there that my voice is not very clear in the chat. I hope it's coming through more clearly now. You will notice this, and this is fantastic. Good to hear that it's clear. This is one of the last big ideas I want to discuss before we take questions now. It's the idea that, so what should we use artificial intelligence for? As I went through those four things, teaching vocabulary, adjusting the length and complexity of a text, retrieval practice questions, and reflection questions, as I went through those four things, if you teach, you might go, well, Paul, I do those. I do those already. This is not cutting edge. This is not groundbreaking. Here's the big idea for you. I would put it to you that we don't need to use new technology like artificial intelligence to do new things in the classroom. In fact, that's why so many teachers get quite nervous about it. They think they have to use new tech to do new things. Every teacher is made up of knowledge and skills and pedagogical techniques and experience that we've accumulated over our years in the classroom. Many teachers feel like if they're going to use new technology, they have to take that big bag of things, their knowledge and wisdom and expertise and techniques, they have to take that and they have to put that in the bin and start again because they're going to have to start doing new things with AI. I'd put it to you, friends, we don't need to use new technology to do new things. Actually, we can use new technology to do the basics of education better. We can use AI to do the basics better. I call it AI for better basics. If you watch my TED Talk, and that's available on my LinkedIn page, you can go to search Paul Matthews AI, and you can see my LinkedIn page. There's a link to my TED Talk there. That's a big idea, AI for better basics. And why is that such a big idea? Well, friends, as educators, we know what works. I know if my learners are struggling to read and write, if I teach them the key vocabulary, that's going to help them out. There is a mountain of evidence. There is a list of studies as long as my arm to show that that's an effective teaching practice. So what do I use AI for? Well, I use it to do the evidence-backed basics more often for more learners. Right? We know that that's actually going to have a really positive impact for our students and our school communities. I call that idea AI for better basics. Now, why is that a really encouraging idea for you to hear? Well, because if you're an educator with experience, it actually means all your experience is still valid in this brave new world of technology because you can use artificial intelligence to do all the same things that you have been doing, but you can do it more often and for more learners and in a more tailored way. You can open up the doors of your classroom and offer that pedagogical hospitality, that educational hospitality, more often to more learners. So what have we looked at there? Well, we've looked at the idea of pedagogical hospitality. We've looked at the idea of better basics. We've looked at the idea of options, not answers. And we've run through 4 practical examples. Right now, I'm happy to take questions. Probably questions in the chat is the best way for us to do it. And that way I'll be able to see them and read them and understand what's going on there. So more than happy to take questions now. Let's have a look in the chat here.
Yes. Well, there's one question that can we say AI can save time to cater to challenges of students and ensure inclusive education? Ideas have been there and solutions we know.
Yes. Yes. Sorry, I just didn't hear the question in that.
Okay.
I did see one question here in the chat as well.
There's one.
Ideas have been there and solutions we know. Yeah, so I'm reading the same thing you're reading. I'm just not
Okay.
seeing a question in that. I guess Yes, so AI can save time and cater to challenges of students and ensure inclusive education. Here's the big idea that lies behind that. As educators, we have usually a very good gut feel. So we have a good intuition or idea about what our learners need. Now, we haven't always been able to do that because we haven't got all the time in the world, right? We have in our classrooms perhaps an almost infinite list of things we can do and a very finite amount of time. So there's that tension. I spoke about that at the start. Self-care, student care. All right. So we have all these things that we want to do, but we have only so many things that we have time to do. AI allows us to actually really supercharge our power to do those administrative tasks like creating retrieval practice quizzes, adjusting the length and complexity of text, and so forth. AI allows us to do those more often for more learners. So, in that way, it absolutely helps us engage well and include more learners than ever before.
Paul, there's one more question. How can AI be a tool to bridge learning gaps amongst children with different linguistic, cultural, or cognitive needs?
It's a really good question. So, we've addressed the cognitive needs. Now, cultural needs, that's an interesting one. Now, there will be parts of your culture which you will be far more an expert on than me, but I want to give you an example of one thing I did again in my very first year of education. I had a learner in my class and he had quite severe autism. Now, as sometimes happens with autistic learners, this young man, he really loved Thomas the Tank. I don't know if you've ever seen that English cartoon. It's about a train called Thomas, and he lives on an island with other trains, and he does all sorts of fun things, right? So I took my entire geography unit and I included examples from Thomas the Tank, and I included characters from Thomas the Tank, and I included storylines from Thomas the Tank, and it took me 15 hours, I think. Now, it was worth it because he absolutely engaged with that unit in a way that was never before possible. And so this is to the point of cultural differences. Now, this just proves this point. Artificial intelligence will allow us to tailor our learning materials to unique learners or learners from other backgrounds, but it won't take you 15 hours. I actually replicated that. That was way back in 2013. I did that. I did that again about 2 weeks ago, and it took me about 15 minutes, not 15 hours. So we can actually, provided we have a clear understanding of what needs to be tweaked or changed, we can do it quickly and easily with that simple prompting technique I taught you earlier, the role, task, format. Give the AI a role, say you are doing this, give it a task, I want you to do this for me, and then a format. That was really, really easy. We can do almost anything, including tailor it to certain cultural differences, right? The AI will allow us to do that. Simply, we just need to ask for what needs to be done, verify the output is appropriate, and then we can go on from there.
Paul, there's one more question. To what extent might an over reliance on AI tools for academic tasks diminish students' intrinsic motivation, independent problem solving abilities, and critical thinking skills, potentially leading to a decline in cognitive engagement rather than fostering deeper learning?
That is a brilliant question. That is a brilliant question. Now, you'll notice, friends, what you will notice here is that every single example of AI use I've given you has been from the teacher. So teachers and learners are in very different positions. First of all, we have different jobs. My job is to teach. A learner's job is to learn. So I might be able to use AI in certain ways that are appropriate to my job as a teacher that might not be appropriate for a learner in their job, which is to learn, right? So many people say, well, how dare you use artificial intelligence as a teacher if you expect your students not to use it? Well, I say, well, I have 100 different expectations of myself and my students because we're doing different things. We're at different developmental stages. We have different roles within the school. In fact, there's so many differences that it's very appropriate. So long story short, I say, believe it or not, I've gone back to pen and paper for my learners almost all the time. I do not get them interfacing with artificial intelligence very often, if at all. Why is that? Well, because I think there's clear research to show that me as a teacher, it's good if I use it. It's really good if I use it. I can do evidence-based practices that help my students learn. I can do them more often for more learners. But there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that it's positive for learners within a school environment. Now, it might be, we just don't know. So what I see here, and you can make up your own idea if this is an idea that you agree with, you can make up your own mind. I see the benefits of AI in our schools and in that inclusive education space flowing through the teacher to the student. Through the teacher to the student. So I use it as a teacher to help me create more tailored, personalized, feedback-rich resources than ever before. And then I give those to my students. I don't have my students using it all the time. I still think we should teach them how to use it, but just because we teach them how to use it doesn't mean we should let them use it all the time. In fact, as I said, most of my lessons now, I do pen and paper. Even though I'm at a relatively wealthy independent school, we've put the computers away most of the time because I want to guarantee that is their own. I've got a question here I can see. Can you name some AI platforms that can be accessible by teachers? Sure. So generic tools, so tools that anyone can access that could be used for anything, chatgpt.com, grok.com. They're two tools that anyone can use. One of the tools that I'm really passionate about, and I'm passionate about it because it represents the big body of knowledge that I have gained as a global consultant, as a teacher, and as a published author. I have partnered with a group and we've created our own tool called My Teacher Aid. That's My Teacher AIDE. If you go to myteacheraid.com, you can have a look at our tools, you can see some product demos, and you can even get yourself a free trial. We're working on updating the CBSE curriculum. And if you get in touch with me on LinkedIn, you can request that and I can personally let you know when that's ready. So My Teacher Aid, I'm really excited about it because we're already working with thousands of teachers to help them do evidence-based practices more often for more learners. So
Paul,
I'll put...
yeah, so sorry. There's one more question. Don't you think excessive dependency on AI will hinder creativity, originality, and critical thinking skills from students?
Yes, absolutely, it will. So that's why I said we don't necessarily want our students to use it very often. I don't get my students to use it that often. I train them in how to use it, but that doesn't mean we use it for everything. In fact, we don't use it for many things at all. Students need to develop the key skills and abilities themselves. All right. And here's a big idea we need to teach our students. They say, "Oh, sir, I get this all the time. Oh, Mr. Matthews, I can just get AI to write for me in the future. I can just get AI to do graphic design for me in the future. I don't need to learn these things when I can get AI to do them for me." And that's not true. And I'll tell you why. You cannot automate what you don't understand. Right? You cannot automate what you don't understand. Students need to understand that. Yes, people can get AI to write well. You know who can do it? People who can write well. Yes, AI can do great graphic design. You know who can get it to do great graphic design? People who are great designers themselves. In fact, in a world with AI, our own skills and abilities and competencies, that is what will allow us to use AI wisely. So we need to be telling our students all the time, you need to cultivate the key skills. You need to learn how to write, how to read. You need to remember facts and dates and names and places. You need these core basic skills because that's actually going to allow you to use AI to the fullest extent when you graduate into the workforce. So yes, that's my answer to do we need to be worried about them overusing AI? Yes, absolutely we do. And we need to encourage them that their skills are still absolutely needed and that they need to learn them without relying on AI to do the work for them.
There's one more question. You gave a brilliant example of Bill with which we can identify. Can you give one more such example in which AI helped you address inclusive education?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Bill is an interesting case. And for every Bill, I have at least one Susan as well. Now, Susan is another learner that I have in my classroom, except instead of being 4 grade levels below, she's 4 grade levels above. Now, let me tell you this. I've always had learners like Bill in my focus because in my class, if I'm teaching someone and they don't understand anything I'm saying, do you know what they start to do? They start to distract themselves and they start to distract other people and they make my life hard and the life of the other learners very hard. I've always worked hard to scoop up those people who are really struggling. But you know who I haven't helped until the age of AI? Was learners like Susan. Let me tell you about her. She was a lovely young lady. She was quite quiet. She would finish her work in half the time and she would sit there and read her book. Do you know what she needed? She needed extension. She didn't need to be scooped up. She needed to be pushed forward. She needed, I often would say to her, Susan, I want to send you to the moon. I want to send you to the moon, right? What I want to do is extend you. We can use AI not just to scoop up those learners who are struggling, but to extend those learners who need extra thinking, who need to be challenged, who need to be supported to learn more. And so we can easily do that. For example, I can take a very simple task that I'm doing. It might be a research task or a writing task. I can use artificial intelligence and I can say, hey, I want you to make an extension activity. And I want that to include higher order thinking, concepts like synthesis, analysis, debate, discussion, evaluation. All those higher order thinking concepts I want you to use as well. And that's not just going to sort of fill in the time for Susan, so she's just not there sitting reading a book. It's going to make her think in ways that perhaps the original activities weren't going to make her think. And so I would say there's an opportunity. For every Bill, there is a Susan, friends. And your class will have both, and you can cater for them. You can include both of them when you use artificial intelligence wisely.
Great. Thank you so much. What an incredible start to our AI in Education series. We just wrapped up an eye-opening session on how AI can enhance teaching, workflows, and streamline lesson planning, making education more inclusive, efficient, and impactful. A heartfelt thank you to Mr. Paul Matthews for delivering such a thoughtful, practical, and future-ready session, even while unwell. Your dedication is truly appreciated. You reminded us that AI is more than just a tool, it becomes a true teaching ally when guided by wisdom and purpose. Wishing you a speedy recovery and good health. Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you to
Thank
all
you.
the participants. Yeah, you were saying something, sorry.
No, I just said I wish you all the best. And I trust that as you go back into your classrooms or whatever role you play in education, you're able to offer that pedagogical hospitality, that welcome, that inclusive education that we are able to offer now with a world that has AI in it. So thank you so much for having me. And please reach out on LinkedIn. If you look up Paul Matthews AI, I'd love to keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for the session. Participants, this is just the beginning of our journey into AI powered education. Join us again tomorrow at 3:15 p.m. IST for day 2, where we dive even deeper into the possibilities of AI in classrooms. And before you go, a quick reminders to receive your e-certificates, you have to fill out the feedback form that will be emailed to you after all the sessions. You'll get the certificates by next week. So keep an eye on your inbox. And don't forget our AI in Education quiz is scheduled for May 31st. Stand a chance to win Amazon vouchers worth up to rupees 25,000. Thank you once again for being a part of this transformative experience. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you tomorrow. Once again, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much. Okay.